morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Brittany. I'm from ABC Today, and we have Jeff Cunningham here from KFVS, and he is going to talk to us about his career in journalism and his path to get to where he is today. So, welcome, Jeff. I'm going to just ask you to introduce yourself and maybe just some background of like where you went to school, any certifications, college degrees, that kind of stuff.
Okay, well, hey, I'm Jeff Cunningham. I'm a news anchor at KFVS in Cape Girardeau. I've been here for 17 years now. I've been in the news business for about 25 years, which is crazy to think about. Let's see. I started off when I was in high school in broadcasting. I was the kid with a friend of mine who did the morning announcements, you know, and we would always MC the talent show or the Christmas program or whatever. And then I also did a little DJing for free at a small radio station there in Oklahoma where I grew up. And I just kind of went from there. I always knew that I was going to get into broadcasting. I didn't know it was going to be TV until later, but I kind of focused on that. And then as far as education goes, you know, a big part of it was working at that radio station and kind of getting, you know, the idea of using your voice, you know, to broadcast. And then I went to college in Texas, but I always tell kids or whomever is interested in getting in TV that the biggest thing for me was my internship. I did an internship when I was in college at a TV station in Austin, Texas. KI-42 was the station. Pretty sure it's still there. And I learned a ton at that internship. So I'm always surprised at KFVS that we don't have more interns. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And then when I was finishing college, I got my first job at a really small TV station in Texas, Victoria, Texas. And then from there, I went to Lawton, Oklahoma as a morning anchor. And then I went to Tallahassee, Florida. And then I went to Oklahoma City. And then I went to Cape Girardeau. So that's been kind of my journey so far.
Wow, I love it. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So what would you say is the best part of your career? And I don't know if you like the traveling part, but if you had to pick one thing about your career, what is it?
That's a good question. So, yeah, the traveling was cool when I was single, you know, and younger. And I didn't stay at those places for very long. And that was cool. It was great to go to different areas and meet new people and, you know, see the world, as it were, as kind of that microcosm of where I was, the stations where I went. You know, one cool thing was when I was living in, working in Lawton, Oklahoma, I was doing mornings there, and I thought, I want to live in Florida. I like Florida. I like Jimmy Buffett. You know, I want to go live there. So I kind of targeted Florida, and that's when I went to Tallahassee. And some people call Tallahassee South Georgia. I call it Florida. To me, it was Florida. It worked. You know, we went to the beach and stuff like that, and that was fun. And then, so it was cool to be able to do that. And then what's cool now is that after moving around a lot and then getting engaged and then subsequently married, I decided that I wanted my next move from Oklahoma City. I wanted it to be somewhere where I could put down some roots. And that's where Cape Girardeau came in. So that's why we've been here for 17 years. We like it here, and it's become home. And so that's been a good part of the journey. It's cool being in Cape, and we live in Jackson, but we feel a part of the community here, and we've been embraced by this community. So that's been a great part of it. It's been a nice little a part again of the journey is finding a place to call home, and you know, KFVS is a great station. I like the legacy of it. That was part of the reason I chose to come here, and that's been fulfilled as well. So
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to go back to something you said earlier about internships. Now, I know every, student has to do an internship and it's kind of considered unpaid labor, or sometimes you get lucky and you find a paid internship. But for students who are interested in journalism, what advice can you give them when, they're just starting college and they're looking for that internship? What advice would you give them regarding it?
Well, it's just wherever you are, and whatever you've decided you want to do, right? I mean, that's a big part of it. I think you gotta. I see a lot of even people in the business, they don't really know what they want. They don't know where to go. I talked to a guy who used to work at our TV station last week, who called me for advice because he's in a station he's not totally happy, and he was trying to figure out what the next move was. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And he didn't really know. And that's one of the things. Now, you got to know what you want and then make it happen. I knew I wanted to get into TV, so I worked to make it happen. And that internship was part of it. Now, it may be harder for kids because, you're so young. How do you know what you want to do? But if you do want to get into broadcasting, I would just say you got to make it happen. And part of that is, I went to that in Austin at that time. The CBS and the Fox stations had switched over. It was a whole new operation at the CBS, KI-42. This was like in 1994 or something, 95. So I went there and I just said, hey, I want to intern here. And they were like, okay, cool. And so there was no real structure to it. I just started going in every day and learning the business. And I'd go out on stories with the photographers, and then I did some sports. I worked in sports. I'd go to the games. I'd help them out. It was like you said, I was free labor, but I loved it. I was learning the business, and I learned so much about the business there than I did in college, because it's just different. That was the classes that you take in college and stuff. It's all good. I'm not anti-college or anything, but I just learned so much in that internship that I honestly feel like that's where I really understood how to put a tape together to then send that out and get a job. But yeah, that I would just suggest that wherever you are, and depending on what you want to do, like if you want to get into radio, go to a local radio station, say, hey, I want to volunteer. I want to do whatever. And then who knows what'll happen from that. I remember when I was interning the first time I went with this photographer, it was outside of a movie. I forgot what the movie was, but we were interviewing people about the movie, and we came back and it was on TV, and I was like, hey, that's my hand. It was just my hand holding the microphone on camera, but that was like, that's my hand on TV. So
the little things, the excitement that brings it to you. Now, can you provide more details about, like, I know you're physically on the news, I watch that, but can you provide some more like jobs that are within journalism, whether if it's behind the scenes or other colleagues that you work with, or like specific departments that maybe students could be interested in?
Yeah, so what you see on the news is kind of the end product of a lot of people's work, right? So, and within the news business, there obviously are a lot of different jobs. So, if you want to be on air and you want to be a reporter or an anchor, then, that's the route I took. And most of the time, how that works is you'll be a reporter first, and then you kind of move into anchoring, right? Now, our shows are produced by people, our producers, and they are more like that would be for someone who maybe wants to get into writing. It's a creative outlet a lot of times, because writing for TV is different than writing for like a newspaper or writing a term paper, something like that. There's a style to it. I won't get into all the details, but you can always tell a good producer who's a good writer, and those are shows that you like to anchor, because you don't have to change a lot of things as you're anchoring. Because what we do is I'll go in and everybody's got a different style, and every anchor's got a different style, and the producer has produced the show and written it a certain way, and then you can change it and make it more you, you know. So there's that. But then there's the photography aspect of TV news, right? We had a reporter not too long ago named Hank, who is now in Austin, and he was really into photography and the editing and making the stories look cool and well shot. So there's that aspect. That's a real creative outlet, you know. And he wanted to go to move on to another station that valued photography, and that's what he did. He went to the station in Austin. That's what they value that. You know, you win awards for those things. So that was a creative outlet. So there's that. Then there's sports. Some people may want to get into sports and TV. That's a smaller subset, and sometimes that may be even harder to get into because a lot of people want to get into sports. Mm-hmm. But if you're into it, you know, that's cool too. And so there's producing, there's editing. You know, all of the editing we do nowadays is on computer, obviously, and there's different programs, and some people have this vast knowledge of those programs and how to edit, you know, more than I do. I'm like at the bottom, you know. I can kind of make it work, but a lot of people know all the ins and outs, and you can really dress up a story if you know how to edit correctly, you know, especially stories that aren't very that are video poor. Like, you know, I did a story not too long ago about, you know, cell phone safety or something like that. Well, you know, there's only so many shots you can use of a cell phone before it gets boring. But the guy who edited it was really talented, and so he did all these cool tricks, and the phone opened and rang, and, you know, the little buttons and stuff like that. He really dressed up the story. It made it better. So there's that. So, you know, there's a lot of different facets in TV. You just have to kind of figure out which way you want to go, and then, like I said, make it happen.
No, that's awesome. I'm learning stuff. I'm also learning that I hope my video editing skills of this video will be up to par. So my last question for you is, what are some of the unexpected parts or challenges in your career that maybe you didn't anticipate, maybe when you moved to Cape Girardeau 17 years ago, or even during that kind of undergrad trial period, young professional portion of your life?
Well, let's see. So the business has changed a lot in the time that I've been in, and a big part of that is social media, right? And the digital aspect of it. When I was first in the business, there wasn't a Facebook, so, you know, there's that. Now, what's interesting is there for a while, Facebook became this big deal, and they wanted us to get on Facebook all the time and to you know, write stuff. That's gone away a little bit now, thankfully, because, you know, that was a bit of a challenge. The thing with Facebook and social media and TV was, and still is actually, is that I could get on there and put a post and say, hey, you know, watch the news tonight. We're gonna have this great story about chess or whatever. And nobody cared. No one would respond to that post. But if I got on there and I said, hey, here's a picture of my dog, then, everybody loved it, you know, likes, and here's my dog and pictures back. So what we figured out with social media, and this was a challenge, was that the people on social media, they really just want to know about you, Jeff. They don't care. They're going to watch the news anyway, or they're not, you know.
Yeah.
But that wasn't a driving factor in getting them to watch. But so that's been interesting. And then, you know, also the challenge of what to put on Facebook when you put something that might be considered controversial. That's another a challenge these days. I try to stay away from that stuff. And if you ever get on my Facebook page, I try to make it like the Oprah of Facebook. You know, I'm trying to be just positive.
I think you do a great job at it. I follow you, and you do a really great job at it. So
well, I appreciate that. I'm glad someone notices, because my life is pretty boring. But yeah, I do. I stick to the. You know, I did a post. I think the last one I did was asking people what they were doing for New Year's Eve. You know, I was chilling here at my house, listening to albums and I drinking a little wine or whatever. And then I got a bunch of responses to that, so that was cool. You know, another funny thing about it is one time I just did peanut butter, crunchy or creamy, go. And then I got like 200 comments, you know,
Yeah.
everybody telling you what. So that's been an interesting challenge, is incorporating social media into that wasn't there when I started, and now that's a big part of what we do. You know, KFVS has a Facebook page, they have Twitter and things like that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, every career has its challenges, and, with the changes from literally your news being on a TV set for so many years, and then this sudden kind of twist with social media and where you getting your news from is so important, and the importance of the media and who's behind there, and that you guys are real people. I totally get that. So it did answer my question.
I will tell you this though, just to follow up on that, and that is that it's also been a challenge as far as when it comes to Facebook and social media. I tell people, don't get your news from social media, from Facebook, because it's so easy for people to make something look legit when it's not, right? And so what I suggest is, if you are going to get news from Facebook or social media or whatever, make sure that the source is legit. You know, you want to get your news from someone who would get in trouble if they told you something that wasn't true, right?
Hence why you have a job, right?
Exactly. Honestly. And if I did it even one time, and I could get into a whole thing and I won't, but as far as like the safeguards in place to keep us, the news business, from lying to our viewers, or we would never do that. But if I did, let's say one time, I would get fired, because our credibility is all we've got, and you don't get a second chance with that. So while Facebook is cool for the social aspect and social media, like I said, it gives you kind of an insight into your favorite news person's life. Make sure that you get your news from a legitimate source. And so
I like how you mentioned about credibility, especially with individuals who are in journalism and, who go to get those stories, and making sure that they're bringing back the facts and for you all to broadcast. But that was my last question. So I'm just going to close for our students at Central High School, and maybe other high schools that can benefit from this interview with you, Jeff. So we really thank you for hopping on and giving us an inside look at what you do, what you're about, and just like the career choice you've made. And I really hope our students are able to benefit from all the information that you were able to give us. And you were really great. Thank you so much for joining us.
oh, well, thanks for having me. It was my pleasure.
Awesome. And